Today, I'd like to talk to you about being a persistent writer. So, a few weeks ago, I was at a writing festival where I went to a variety of workshops, and I went into one where the writer was talking about being persistent and not giving up, as a writer, not giving up on your work. I thought that, it was an interesting topic, so I wanted to go and see what she had to say. And so she mentioned that she took 13 years to write one book and 23 years to write the second book or something like that. So it took her a long time. She started one, and what it took her 23 is because she started that one, left it aside, then started writing the second one. Took 13 years to write that one, came back to the first one and wrote that one. So what she was saying, of course, was to never give up, right? Be persistent, keep writing your stories. And I sat there on the audience and I thought, well, everybody has their own process. Every author writes differently. But I wondered, and I even asked her, do you think that it's a persistence thing, or do you think that maybe it wasn't, a priority for you? Because she had mentioned, well, that she had other things that, she had a full-time job, and she had, of course, she's married, and she had all the other things that she needed to take care of too. And so she kind of agreed. She's like, yeah, well, I think you're right. It wasn't like a priority. I had all these other things that I had to take care of too. And then I wrote, when I could, but I was very persistent. I didn't give up on the story. And it's like, yeah, well, that's cool. But the whole thing like made me wonder, right? Like, because I give writers the same advice. I say, make sure that you are persistent and you don't give up on your stories. But it made me wonder, like, what is it that I actually mean? Because I'm not sure, honestly, that I would have had the persistence to spend like a decade on a book. I just don't think that I would have done that. I probably would have moved on to a different story or a different book. So when I tell writers to be persistent, what exactly am I telling them? So I'm going to talk about that today.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante, and I am a women's fiction author, and I also like to think of myself, I guess, as a writing mentor, where I can give you some advice and help you to write your book. So let's talk about what I mean when I say that writers need to be persistent. So the first thing that I think of when I think of being persistent as a writer is being persistent in storytelling. So that means that you want to give your story as much time and as much, I guess, space as that story needs in order to develop, right? So it's going to depend on each writer. Again, it's going to be different because everybody has their own different process and how long it takes them and how much time they have to devote to their story. But just understand that it's going to take some time to write it, to create it, to think of it, then to write it, then to edit and revise it. So it's not something that it's going to be super fast. I do know writers that write super fast. They've been writing a long time, and they've already got their technique down. They already know what they're doing, and they can write a lot faster. I will never be able to write fast. That's just not me. I take a long time. I don't take I can take more than a year, but usually within a year I've written my rough draft at least. But I know that it could take longer than that. I've taken like 3 years. Why? Because I wrote the book, I left it, I came back to it, I revised it, I changed point of view at one point where I wanted to have another point of view. I changed from first person to third person. I just was very unsure about that book. And so I changed a lot of it to see what I liked best, what worked best. And so sometimes that takes a long time. And what we need to do as writers is figure out why. Why is it taking us so long? Is it the story itself that is not exciting us and we're not wanting to return to it? Is it outside things that are not allowing us the time to write? What is it that is stopping us from finishing the book and trying to fix that, right? But we do want to be persistent in creating our story. We don't want to give up on a story if it's a good story because of other things. We just kind of need to fix those other things so that we can come back to our story. So what I'm saying is you want to deal with the reason that you're not able to finish the story. If it's a story itself, then maybe it's not the right story and we need to move on to a different story. If it's just finding time, then maybe we need to say, okay, let's create some time. Let's get rid of some other projects that we have right now so we can finish the story. Then we'll go back to the other projects. Or is it that, there's maybe an issue in the story that is we're not really wanting to deal with, and so we're not dealing with it, and so we're not coming back to the story. So find out what is sort of that block that is stopping you, and then do something to eliminate that block so that you can come back to your story and it doesn't have to take you so long. So don't give up on it. Stay, be persistent with the story, but at some point, if it is the wrong story, it's just not going anywhere because it's the story itself, then it's time to start a new story. But if there are other things that are stopping you, then we need to deal with these other things so we can continue with the story that we really do want to write and that we love. The other time that I talk about being persistent and telling writers not to give up, it's when I talk about selling a book. So the whole publishing world and industry is a tough one. It's a challenging industry to be in because it's not easy to sell a book. It's not easy to get an agent, get an editor, get a publisher, and sell your book. It's also not easy to self-publish, even though it may seem like it's easier. It's really not. There's a lot involved in creating your own book. So, but you want to be persistent because again, it does take a long time. So if it takes you, if you're going the traditional publisher route and you would love to sell your book to a publisher, know that it's going to take you some time to find the right publisher. It might take you some time to find an agent. Then it might take you that agent some time to find a publisher, a place for your book. And a lot of authors, that's why it takes them a while. It's because they are searching for that right publisher and they're going through many sometimes, right? So maybe it's they've gone through like the top of the line publishers. They've been rejected by them. They've gone through a second tier of publisher. They've been rejected by them. And you do have to be persistent there, right? If you love your story, if you believe in your story, you want to continue to send out your manuscript until you get a publisher that either says, yes, I love this and I do want to publish this, or you decide that, well, it didn't work out doing traditional publishing. Maybe I want to self-publish and just take control of this whole thing myself. So, or, at some point, if you decide, well, no, I'm going to move on to a different story, but you want to be persistent in selling that book because it is a challenge and it does take some time. And, a lot of famous authors have been rejected multiple times. They were persistent. They continued to send their manuscript out, and eventually a publishing house bought their book and published them. Pausing for a second to let you know about a couple of courses that I've created. If you're a beginning writer and you want some help with your book, I just want to let you know that I do have a basic course on how to write, and I'm going to post it below. And if you're not a beginning writer, but you are more established and you're ready to publish your work, you have your novel written, I also have a publishing course. And I will also post it below, so take a look at it. Maybe there'll be just what you're looking for. All right, let's go back to the video now. Okay, and the third way that I think of persistence is being persistent in your writing career. So know that this is going to be a long haul, right? The career takes a long time. If this is going to be something that you want to do forever, for the rest of your life, then be patient with yourself and know that it's going to take a while. Everything doesn't have to happen all at once, right? You don't have to write your book in this year and sell it this year and and have it be out on Amazon this year and then sell 1 million copies this year. It doesn't all have to happen all at once. Sometimes, most of the time, it takes a long time for your career to build and for you to develop as a writer, for you to become a better writer. You have to have the patience to know that you wrote a book, maybe it didn't sell, maybe you sent it out 100 times and it didn't sell, and you decide, well, I don't really want to self-publish. Well, then what do? Well, then you write a second book, And then that second book, you go through the same steps, and then you send it out to all the publishers and see if something happens with that second book. If it gets rejected 100 times, what do you do? Write a third book, right? So you keep doing this because each book is going to get better. Each book is going to have a different theme, a different story, a different feel to it, that maybe that first book just wasn't the right time for it. Nobody wanted it, but maybe the third book is a book that for some reason you wrote an idea that people loved and people wanted, right? And maybe it's just things that changed in society and all of a sudden people are talking about this topic, or maybe who knows what happens, right? So maybe you just became a better writer by that third book, and that's why it sold. So believe in yourself, believe in your stories and in what you're writing. Be persistent in your career. Don't give up on your career, because that is the only way to fail as a writer, is to say, well, I tried for a year, I tried for 3 years, and I didn't sell anything. So I guess I'm not a writer, and I guess it's not going to happen. Well, then, of course, it's not going to happen because you've given up. So be persistent in that career, because you never know. You never know how long it's going to take for your stories to sell. Even after you get picked up by a publisher, the stories may or may not do well, and then you may have to continue to write and see what happens. Most writers don't become like big New York Times bestselling authors, but they're able to write, right? They're able to do something that they love to do. They're able to find their own readership. They're able to, just enjoy the whole aspect of publishing and sharing their books and their stories with readers, which is hopefully the reason that most of us are doing this anyway. So be persistent in your career until you get to the spot that you want to be in. So I want to end this by saying that little formula here. So forward movement plus persistence equals success, meaning that the more you do this, the more you keep going, the more you keep progressing, the more you keep improving your skills, and the more you stick with it, right? You don't give up. The easier it's going to be successful, or the more likely it is that you are going to be successful. I didn't publish my first book or my second book or my third book. It took a while for me to get better, and that's what happens with the majority of people. So it's okay for it to take a while. It's okay for it to get rejected. It's part of the business. In fact, if you haven't gotten rejected at all, then it's like you're not going to feel like a real writer, right? You want to get rejected a little bit so that you have your story. I got rejected 3 times, or I wrote 5 books and they didn't get published, and you'll always have those writer stories. You want to have that. So look at it that way, right? That you're just building these writer stories if it's taking you a while, but you want to keep going. So I do believe in persistence. Every writer, I guess, has a different threshold of how long they're going to be persistent with one story. For me, it's obviously not going to be as long as it was for the writer that I listened to, but for her was, and she was able to get those 2 books that she obviously had a lot of passion for. She got them published, and here she is, right, at a writing festival talking about it. So for her, that was the right amount of persistence, and it was success. For me, it would be different. For you, it'll be different. But you have to have some persistence. You have to stick with it long enough for you to get what you want from this career. Okay, I hope that this has helped, and that you are excited about writing, and that you're going to be persistent. If you've liked this video, please hit the like button and share it with anybody that is interested in writing. I'd love to have them come and watch my videos. Until next Friday, I'll see you then.